This is the last time I'm going to try to record this. I just sat down and I attempted to make this video over 15 times, and every time I ended it, I felt unsatisfied and disappointed. So I need to accept that I'll probably walk away from this video feeling unsatisfied and disappointed as well. Basically, a few days ago, Laci Green made a video called Taking the Red Pill, I believe is what it's called. And it elicited so many feelings in me. And I think you should go watch the video. And I think you should go watch all the responses, or not all, I think you should go watch many of the responses that this video inspired, because I think it is an important and interesting conversation, and I don't think you'll be able to totally understand it if this is the only video that you watch about it. But if I were to summarize Laci's goal and her objective, and basically what her video was asking for, or what it was hoping for, I would say that her Taking the Red Pill video was a call and a hope for productive conversation between two conflicting ideologies. Those ideologies being the feminist community and the anti-feminist or skeptic ideology. And I felt so many things watching her video. And when I initially watched it, I had this it lit a fire in my tummy, like a positive fire. I was so excited because I love the idea that it could be possible to have productive conversations with people who have such a drastically different perspective from me. I love the idea of these two camps being able to sit down and form a better understanding of each other. I love that. I think that's awesome. And I think that that's what Laci's video was calling for. That's my interpretation. But I also think that Laci left out a lot of important things, and maybe she considered a lot of the perspectives and situations and context around all of this, but she didn't put it in her video. She's such a thoughtful person. I imagine she considered all this, but she didn't include it in her video. Basically, I think it's not as simple as sitting down and saying, hey, let's have a productive conversation, and then expecting that to happen. I don't think it's that simple at all. I think if it were that simple, I would die. I would be so happy. See how excited I got? If I could guarantee, if God came up to me and he was like, hey Ash, do you want to have a really cool, calm, collected, dope, private, because I think sometimes when you have these conversations in front of huge audiences, it becomes really performative. And I still think we know that so many people are watching us, so our guard is up, and when we don't really allow ourselves to be able to shift our perspective. So if God came up to me and he was like, hey, guess what? I'm giving you this opportunity to sit down with Blair White, and you guys can really talk it out, and you can learn what each other is all about, and it can be super private. That way nothing is fake and nothing is performative, and you can get a look inside Blair's head, and Blair can get a look inside your head, or you and Undoomed can go to private coffee, and you can just shoot the shit, and you'll walk away better understanding their perspective and better understanding their process, and they will walk away better understanding you and what you're about. And then God said, and nobody's going to swear at you, and you're not going to swear at no one, and nobody's going to pick apart your appearance, and you're not going to call them moronic, and nobody's going to have this goal to drag the other one or ruin the other one, and no one's going to try to position themselves on moral high ground, and it's a genuine opportunity for you and Bering to sit down and really understand each other. Jeff Holiday wants to take you out for a beer. No one's going to know about it. Jeff's not even going to tweet about it the next day. It's only for you and Jeff's personal growth. and both of you aren't walking into the conversation thinking, I'm going to convince this person. You're thinking, I want to see how you see, and then afterwards I'll decide if I still feel the same way, or if any parts of me have shifted or changed. If God said, you want to do that? It's going to be great. And also, no one's going to bring up your friends and talk about what human garbage they are. and no one's going to, like, yeah, if God said, do you want to do that? I would say, yes! Yes! Fast! Now! Let's do it now! But, but I don't, I know it's not as simple as that. And I know that, I think it's beautiful and hopeful to wish that could happen, but I also think it's unrealistic and naive and setting people up for disappointment and failure. And you probably think that sounds real pessimistic. And you're right, it sounds real pessimistic, but it's also realistic. So I think that Laci's video was essentially calling for a productive conversation, but failed to mention how there are some people you simply can't have productive conversations with because they refuse because they refuse to, essentially, because they refuse to remain calm, collected, and respectful. Or maybe they choose to be calm, because I've seen this happen before. I've seen, like, these opposing parties come together for a live stream, and immediately they are way more cordial and lovey-dovey than they are in their own videos. And it's like, you are not being real. Like, you're not being real. I wish, and the sad part is, I don't want them to be real, because when they're both real, they're super disrespectful to each other. I wish they just genuinely were kind and respectful. I wish that when I was able to go to these anti-feminist channels and watch them and learn about their thought processes more. And there are channels like this. There are channels. These channels do exist, but I think personally they are few and far between, and their numbers are so much lower. And they are the minority of this group. I wish I could go to an anti-feminist channel and just hear them out and be able to see how they see without, being indirectly called moronic or idiotic or hearing a slur that just is, in my opinion, awful. I wish I could do that. But because YouTube is an entertainment platform, the system rewards people who are inflammatory and are disrespectful because it's more entertaining to watch. And so the people who are kind of douchey, their channels are growing and they're getting lots of views. And the people who aren't douchey are remaining small and kind of hidden. And that goes for feminists too. If feminists get... this goes for anybody. Anybody who's douchey to another person is probably going to get more views. Anybody who's dramatic, anybody who's reactionary, the system just rewards that. So the system, is working against kind of, calm and compassionate conversation, because it is boring to watch. It is boring in comparison to two people fucking going at it. So I think that, Laci Green fails to mention that because of the way YouTube is, the system doesn't really allow for productive conversation between these two camps. And she fails to mention that while it would be dope to talk to some of these people, they have a past of saying horrible things, and it's not so easy for everybody to forget that. Especially if they still stand by those things. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I have is like and I'm sure that people on the other side have parallel feelings, but like, flipped. I'm sure that there's a skeptic who says like, I would love to talk to Laci Green, but she's said really harmful things before, and it's hard for me to want to listen to her if I know she still believes that thing. Just like I think, like, it would be great for me to sit down with these people, but they have talked about how ugly and garbagey my friends are, and, like, it's really hard for me to respect anything, or not respect, it's really hard for me to, like, wholeheartedly take in anything they say when I know this is how they feel about another person. Like, they don't value, I don't know. So I think the issue is so much more than let's have these two camps sit down and understand each other. I'm still open to it, and I still think we should try. But I think we gotta recognize that there's more to it than that, than just wishing we could sit down. And I think, like, Marina talked about this in her response video, but, like, it might be easy for Laci to be like, let's debate about non-binary genders, because she has no, like, personal stake in it. In a super personal sense. Maybe she has, like, I'm sure she has many, many, many trans friends, so when I say she has no personal stake in it, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, she has no, like, personal in the most literal sense. Like, Laci is not trans, So it's like, of course it's easy for her to say, like, let's sit down with a person who has a really or not easy, of course it is easier for her to say, let's sit down with a person who has, like, a transphobic past and learn about them. It's going to be easier for her to do that than, like, an actual trans person. Because, like, all the trans person is thinking is, like, you just think I'm disgusting. Why do I care to learn about why? Like, Like, why do I care to learn about why you think I'm such a joke? I'd rather just, like, go through life being me. I don't think and I think so, yeah. What else? So I watched Laci's video, and I just think it's, like, I think it didn't state a lot of important context and a lot of important things. But I like the ultimate idea that she's going for, which is, wouldn't it be cool if we could understand each other more? Because, yeah, it would be cool. Wouldn't it be cool? It would be. And I'm not saying, and I don't want anybody to think I'm saying, like, you think it's hard to do that, so you're not even gonna try? No, that's not it at all. Like, that's, I can understand if maybe you've heard everything I've said and that's the conclusion you've come to, about how I feel, but I'm telling you, you're wrong, that's not it. I just think we just gotta remind ourselves that it is difficult. I think we just have to approach it smartly and thoughtfully and cautiously. Because I think we should consider anybody that we're sitting down to have a conversation with, I think we should consider their pasts and what they've said and what they stand for and how that could alienate or hurt anybody who's watching. I think we should consider that, I think we should consider the system and the platform that is YouTube, and I think we need to understand that a live broadcast productive conversation is not actually as productive as it probably frames itself as, because, again, we're doing it in front of an audience. We are performing. We are don't lie. Like, we can't lie to ourselves. We're walking away hoping to have, in a sense, won the conversation or convinced the other person of more things than they've convinced us. And if we lie to ourselves about that, we're just fooling ourselves. And I think I just think we have to, and I think we have to remember that the system encourages fighting and drama. So I think that's why it's important, like, if we do, when and if we do sit down to have these conversations, because they're important and they're valuable, when they go right, they're so good. But I think there's so much potential for them to go wrong. And I don't mean wrong as in, like, I lost a debate or it wasn't fun. I mean wrong as in, like, it was a bad experience. This person, treated me like I was, like, just had no dignity and I was slime. Or maybe I got so heated and I got so impassioned in the moment that I treated the other person super disrespectfully. And then, like, so say if I were to have a debate with, it shouldn't be a debate either, because it shouldn't be like because that frames it like a battle. It should be like a conversation. So let's say I were to sit down and have a conversation with, I can't say opposing, because then it still frames it like a battle, with, the other ideology. I were to have a conversation with them. I would kind of be, even though I'm a person and I shouldn't be representing the feminist movement, I just kind of am. That's how it goes. Whether I want to or not, and whether you want me to or not, when I sit down, I kind of am a symbol. So if I misspeak or I say something, it can be detrimental to, like, the movement, or I can misrepresent people in ways that are bad, or I can kind of stand there representing someone and say something that they totally don't believe, totally don't stand behind, but I'm still that representation. That's why I think that it's important to have these conversations, obviously, with caution. And I know that Laci feels that. Well, I don't know that, but I'm guessing that Laci feels that. I'm guessing that Laci has considered this, but, it wasn't really talked about in her video. I think that's a lot of the critiques that a lot of people are having. But like I said, I watched her video, and there was, like my body temperature rose, and a big smile, like, stretched across my face, because I was like, you are acknowledging that one of the biggest problems in this world is that nobody feels like the other party is listening to them. We are not listening to each other. We are not. And that's why we're on such different pages. And maybe if we actually listen to each other, we'd learn that we're actually more similar than we thought. Or maybe if we actually listen to each other, we would come to agree with the other side, or the other side would come to agree with us on like a mix-mashy thing, whatever. And I was like, you're acknowledging that, and you're trying to, like, build this bridge, and I love that. And, like, yes, me too. I want to do that. I wanted to do that for a while. But I also felt like she didn't talk about how if you do that incorrectly, there can be such harmful implications, and she kind of framed it like it would be super easy, but it won't be super easy, but that's probably why it's so important, because important things are hard, and I know she doesn't think it's easy, because I know she's gotten so much shit for this whole thing from both sides. So I know she doesn't think it's easy. I wish she would have, like, said that in the video. And she didn't, like, stress about how it's important to be, like, so careful. I think and maybe you disagree. Maybe you don't think we should be so careful. Maybe you think we should just, like, grow a backbone and fucking sit down and talk to each other. And if the other person slurs at you, like, fucking get over it. Like, grow up. Maybe that's how you feel. And I get that some people feel that way. I don't feel that way. I feel like when we talk about important things like this, we should be careful, and we should, like, do our best to do it thoughtfully and correctly. But, anybody who is from the other ideology thinks that's just going to be, like, gross, unproductive PC culture talking, and I get that. But I can't help it if I've weighed everything and that's still how I feel. So yeah. Was there anything else that I had to say? So I guess to wrap it up, I like that Laci is wishing for more understanding between the two ideologies. And I like that she's hoping for productive conversation. I am on. Woo! My computer, like, I talked for 20 minutes and my computer went to bed. I'm on board with that. I think we need to focus more on how we can do that safely and actually productively and correctly. Because I think it's hopeful, wishful, and oversimplistic to just be like, it'd be great to have productive conversation, so let's do it. Like, there's just, more to it than that. And obviously, it might be, I hate to say anything's easy for Laci, because it's like not. I know, I can't imagine what she's going through right now after this whole thing. Because I was about to say, I imagine it's easy for Laci to want to have these conversations, when she's not a part of every single, minority or oppressed group. I imagine it's easier for, like did I say this? I'm not sure. I've filmed this video so many times. I imagine, if I've said this before, I'm sorry. I imagine it's obviously easier for Laci to sit down and debate about non-binary identities when she's not trans. So it might be easier for her to call for these discussions because she's, pansexual and she's a woman, but she's not, but she's white and she's cis. So having some of these conversations would be easier for her than other people. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And maybe that's why, like, Cat Black hasn't sat down and been like, let's have productive conversations with anti-feminists. Because maybe, like, Cat Black understands and experiences how hard that is. But, on the other side of the coin, I just imagine that this whole thing has been so hard for Laci. Because, this is another thing I want to talk about. Because I was going to say, because, like, I know that she's lost so much respect and so much support from the feminist community for making this video. And I'm not, and that's just got to be so fucking tough. And then the other camp already, like, dislikes her so much, she probably feels pretty alone, and like, she's just on a quest for knowledge and understanding, and receiving so much shit, it's gotta be so hard. And just like, ooh, that's just gotta be tough. But another thing that worries me is, so, like, I was reading the comments of Laci's video, and, like, the skeptic community is, like, holding her up like a trophy. They're like, we won! We convinced the most feministy of feminists! But that's not what's happening. Like, that is not what's happening. And I think that right now, like, after watching, I feel like the attitude right now, and I could be wrong, call me out if I'm wrong, but I feel like the attitude from skeptics right now towards Laci's video is, we're converting her. And, like, that's not what's happening. We're turning her. She's coming to our side. Like, see? She's become logical. And I think I think her video kind of sets this precedent and this idea that she's going to have this like, these conversations with people or these debates with these people, and, like, every time she's going to become a little more and more and more of a skeptic. And I think that's what these people are hoping for and wanting. And I don't think anybody's really accepting or understanding the fact that it's very possible and okay for both of these people to talk and walk away still fundamentally disagreeing. I think the only reason a lot of these people want Laci to, I think a huge part of the reason so many skeptics want Laci to participate in conversations with skeptics is not so she can better understand them, not so she can continue to disagree with them, but so she can be converted. I don't think anybody's really accepting the possibility, and when I say accepting, I mean, like, being okay with the possibility of Laci having, like, 60 debates and still being a super feminist. I think they will then say that ideas are going in one ear and out the other. It seems right now I feel like they're holding her up as like an icon and a trophy about how their side is winning, and they're expecting her to be like more converted every time. And I don't think any of them are actually okay with the idea that that might not happen at all. Actually, she might like have these conversations and like become like more of a feminist. I don't think anybody's like okay with that. Just like how like, I don't know, Bering could have 60 billion live streams with feminists, and I shouldn't expect him after that to, be converted to my side. Like, conversations don't always bring two polarized people into moderate position, like into a moderate place. It's okay to have a conversation and still feel the way you felt before the conversation, as far as like your stance goes. Like, that's all right, and I mean that on both sides. That's okay. Otherwise, then we're like arguing that the true truth is like this moderate ground, but being moderate isn't always right. And I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like both parties both parties sometimes forget that everything is subjective and personal. Both parties. I was going to say especially the anti-feminist community, because the anti-feminist community is always like, logic, studies. Nope, I'm not going to get shady. They say, logic. But they forget that they're talking about these subjective concepts as if they're objective or logical, but they're not. And then the feminist community is always like, moral high ground, do what's right. And it's like, but again, everything social justice is subjective. They're just, roaming millennial is an I don't know how to classify roaming millennial, but if I had to put her in a category of like feminist versus anti-feminist, I guess I would put her in anti-feminist. But she is somebody who made a great, she is often thoughtful and makes critiques about like feminist ideology that make me think. And like very rarely does she say anything I find disrespectful. It does happen, but like it's rare, and that's why I think that's cool. But roaming millennial made a video once about how like there just is no objective truth. Like, there is no like secret list floating in space that has like the right side to be on or the right stance. All we can do is reflect and weigh the information we have and the experiences that we've gone through, and then come to our own subjective conclusion. There is no actual right and wrong. And I think a lot of people forget that. They start arguing like their side is actually like right, and they know that for some reason. Like there's a test they did that proved that they were right, but that's just not the case. So I think if feminists are blue and anti-feminists are red, I feel like the objective truth is yellow. Like, everybody's a prime. Like, I don't feel like one party has it right. And I don't feel like blending them to make a purple is right either, because I don't think it's about like finding. I feel like people always associate being moderate with being like reasonable or rational or understanding, but that's not always true. I feel like we're both so convinced that we're right, that we're missing like so much more of the picture. And I feel like the objective truth is this yellow, this primary color that isn't derived from either of us, that we aren't seeing. And I feel like maybe if we do talk to each other and we both do realize that our what we think is the right, what we think is right, and what we think is the truth isn't so objective, then maybe we together will come to a yellow space. Because if you just go into a conversation thinking you're absolutely right, how are you truly ever going to learn anything? But also, you shouldn't expect anybody to walk into a conversation and have to change any opinion. Because you can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and you can consider, and you can still walk away from something not persuaded. And I think that's okay too. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Now this video got like really rambly and super incoherent. So I am going to wrap it up. Basically, wait, what was I talking about? There was something I was, oh, nope, I don't know. Basically, in the nuttiest of nutted nutshells, I feel like Laci's video was calling for a productive conversation, but I feel like she didn't include important implications and important cautions that she maybe should have. But you might think that's just like a really nitpicky critique, and that like that's fine. You can think that. I don't think that. I think it's important to include those things, but I would love to have a conversation with the other side. Or the other, let's not say side, because again, it makes it like a battle. I would love to have a conversation with the other party. I wish it could just be a perfect conversation. I wish it could be private. I wish we could both be open-minded and have good intentions. And I wish it could be like safe and respectful the whole time. And I'm all about trying to find a way to make that happen. But I'm going to be honest about the fact that I don't think it's going to be easy. So yeah, so what do you think about this whole thing? See, I told you I was going to end this video and feel disappointed and unsatisfied, and I kind of am. Because I know that there's things I want to talk about that I haven't mentioned. And maybe some of you are going to talk about, like, I'm just going to end the video. With the disclaimer that I know that there's so much that I should have talked about that I've forgotten about. And with the emphasis that I might wake up tomorrow feeling totally different than I knew now. Because my feelings about this are so messy. But I hope that Laci is successful in her quest to educate and learn. And I think if she is successful, and I think if she does do it cautiously, and I think if she does do it in the right way, oh my god, I think it could be groundbreaking. I think it could, like, change the world. I think we could set off this domino effect of people actually listening to each other. I think it could be great. I hope it works. I hope it works, and I hope we find people who are also down and also game to be super respectful in the process. And I hope we remain respectful as well. Okay, goodbye.